For more now, let's bring in security specialist Olivier Guita. Olivier, thanks for joining us. I know this story is just breaking now, but there had been rumors that Serge Lazarevic would be freed. What are your thoughts? What are the reasons behind this release and how it happened?
Look, it's pretty obvious that it was a very important sign for the French to release their last hostage. So, differently from other negotiations, it is very much likely that this time it was an exchange of prisoners rather than a payment of hard cash, and namely terrorists of Al-Qaeda and Islamic Maghreb that was held in Bamako, in Mali, in prison. So that's why President Hollande thanked very warmly Mali and Niger as well.
What makes you say that this was more likelihood, an exchange of prisoners as opposed to an exchange of money?
Sources on the ground that I've been speaking to for the past 2 or 3 days, and the fact that AQIM had also asked specifically for release of prisoners in some of their recent videos.
Now, that we were speaking earlier with Cyril Vanier, who's here on the set with me, about this branch, Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, Al-Qaeda in North Africa. Would you say that now they have a loss of influence? They have given up their last French hostage, i.e. their last bargaining chip?
Not really, because as we've seen in the past, they're the most sophisticated when it comes to kidnapping. That's their main business. They're the forefathers of that kind of tactic, so they can grab some other hostages, anywhere in the region at their own will. So I don't think it's much more of seeing them on the wane, but rather that they got what they wanted, so they can go back and possibly kidnap other people in the future.
Cyril Vanier is here with us as well. Olivia, I'm going to pass it over to him to let him ask you something.
Jeannie, I just wanted to comment on what Oliver has been saying. I think that it's an open question as to how much influence AQMI still wields, Al-Qaeda still wields in the region. They still clearly have operational capacity. They have carried out several attacks in the relatively recent past. They're still able to draw to recruit combatants, it seems. But the picture has changed drastically for them over the last 18 months or so, since the French army, backed by the UN, has intervened in northern Mali. And that's a question I'd like to put to Oliver, Mr. Guita. How strong do you think Al-Qaeda still is in the region?
I mean, I get your point that they've been a little bit undermined by what happened in Mali. But look, they've regrouped and moved into, obviously, Tunisia, some place that they weren't before. And that's one concerning aspect, is that when they were kicked out by the Serval operation, they moved into Tunisia. Some of them went even to Syria. There are some elements in Niger, but the most worrisome is AQIM's presence in Libya, in southern Libya. And this is something that the French and the Americans will have to tackle quite quickly. They're very concerned about what's happening in southern Libya, and I would put to you that we've seen that a lot of people have talked about some AQ franchises being on the wane, but it's not the case. And even the spin-off of AQIM, the soldiers of the Caliphate, were able to kidnap Hervé Gaudel in just 24 hours. So I still think that they have a major operation when it comes to kidnappings.
Olivier, just to wrap up, you mentioned there Libya a moment ago. What then is the solution to stopping these kinds of kidnappings, asking for ransom, prisoner exchange?
Not much can be done, except to have, as a lot of foreign countries have asked for their citizens to depart Libya. So there's much less expats in Libya, but I would put to you that in Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco, there are still a very good number of French and European expats. There's not much that can be done, honestly, because of the fact that they can really grab people on on a 24-hour notice.
All right, Olivier Guita, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. You are a counterterrorism consultant. You're watching France 24. Stay tuned for our continuing coverage of the news of the release of the last French hostage held by a terrorist group. Stay tuned.